Once the various classes of recombinant males have been calculated, the columns can be added to determine the total number of crossover events which have occurred between each of these three genes. The largest sum corresponds to the crossover events which have occurred between white and miniature. Therefore, they are the genes which are located farthest from each other, and as we depict these three genes, they will be located at either end. Cut is located in the middle, and it is about equidistant between white and miniature. Although since there are 39 crossover events between cut and miniature, this is a slightly smaller number and thus a closer distance between cut and miniature than between cut and white, since there are slightly more crossover events, 45. And so the order of the genes on the chromosome are white and miniature at the ends and cut in the middle, a little closer to miniature than to white. If we divide the total number of crossover events, in other words the sums of these columns, by the total number of flies, 243 flies counted, including the non-recombinant flies, one then reaches the map units which separate these genes. So it can be calculated that 32.1 map units separate the gene positions of white and miniature, 16.0 map units separate cut and miniature, and 18.5 map units separate the positions cut and white. A discrepancy becomes apparent. The sum of the map units between white and cut, which is 18.5 map units, and cut and miniature, 16 map units, is 34.5 map units, and this is greater than the value calculated between white and miniature at 32.1 map units. The reason for this is that we did not include the double crossover events in our calculations. We now know that cut is located between the other two genes, and when we had set up the crossover columns, we did not know that. For that reason, the two flies which were cut and the one fly which is white miniature, these three flies were not added to the crossover column between white and miniature. But we now know that the only way to move cut is for crossover events to occur between white and miniature. In fact, two crossovers must occur for each of these flies, because if one is to move the gene which is located in the middle, there must be a crossover event on either side of this gene's position. So the two flies which are cut actually represent 4 crossover events, and the one fly which is white miniature actually represents 2 crossover events. If these 6 crossover events, 4 for the 2 cut flies and 2 for the 1 white miniature fly, are then added to the column of crossovers between white and miniature, our former total of 78 is increased to 84, and this increases our map units to 34.6, very close to the sum of the 2 map units determined by the smaller values. And so when we include the double crossover events, the distance between genes becomes more accurate.